Alright YouTube, so today's video, I'm going to be doing some reviews, critiquing, giving some feedback on people who have sent me in their work. If you are interested in having me review your work, critique it, give some feedback, all that kind of stuff, the information will be in the description on where to send it to. And yeah, make sure it's pictures, not videos, anything like that. You have to be okay with me using it on YouTube and my social media. If you're cool with that, then send it over. This is kind of an idea of what you would be getting with the memberships and coaching programs that I'm gonna eventually start rolling out here. And yeah, so it's a good way to learn, get a little bit more of one-on-one feedback, more in depth. This kind of stuff is just a quick overview, review, things to just try and help out a little bit. And then, like I said, if you want more of that one-on-one coaching time, really ask your questions, I'll have that rolled out in the future eventually. So appreciate the people who have sent over work. I'm not going to be able to get to everyone every time, but I try my best to get majority of them, or things that I feel like a lot of people struggle with, where it's more useful for multiple people. So that being said, let's hop into this video, and I appreciate you guys. Okay, so we got this one up first. So immediately what the first thing I'm noticing is I am never a fan of doing full black with small letters and numbers. So what I always try and get people to understand and to do is to make these negative. It's going to be able to help you out with contrast. It's going to be able to help you out with the overall design, especially when it comes to dark skin. So when you have dark skin, you got to understand this about skin in general, right? The darkest point of your tattoo is going to be black ink, right? The lightest point of your tattoo is going to be skin. So especially if you have darker skin complexion, this is not going to show near as good as if this was going to be negative, as if these 1918 and the SC was negative. And all negative means is, for instance, like this. Let's just say we had this number instead, right? I always try and do two things. One, make them bigger, as big as possible. And two is make these numbers or letters or symbols or whatever it is into a negative. So that just means that you have your darkest point right here, which is black, next to negative. This is going to help with your overall contrast and this to pop on darker skin. Because if you can see right here, this has nothing up against for this to pop. So eventually, like any tattoo, it's going to start fading. And this, even though it's as dark as you can go with full black, right? It has nothing to kind of contrast against itself. You have no maybe another shading break or anything up against it to make this pop or the next thing pop, right? So that's why I'm always a really big fan of just trying to make the numbers as big as possible. Obviously, I know this is extremely big, but this is just to show you an example of how much more it pops. So if you had this up here, this is gonna pop way more than what these numbers are. You know what I mean? So always try and invert these as much as you can. Like I said, I know it's hard. If he wanted all these numbers and letters and everything like that, it's kind of hard. You're trying to find a place to put it and everything. But I would encourage you to try and just maybe think of it that way, where if you do have numbers and stuff, try and think bigger and think more negative. It's going to help out on darker skin especially. Because the other thing with darker skin is that you need to shrink your palette. So if you're used to using a full black, a half black, a quarter black, a 10 drop, an 8 drop, a 3 drop, if you have multiple drops or ink caps in your drop system, you need to shrink that down. So if you had 5, let's say, when you go to do dark skin, you need to shrink that into maybe 2 or 3. That's just helping kind of that contrast where you want really black blacks and then you want really light lights, which is negative skin, especially on dark skin. I'm a fan of it in no matter who I'm tattooing or what complexion I'm tattooing. I love contrast. So even if it's a person of my complexion, I'm still going to try and put big negative hits. I would say this type of work is going to be your friend, especially when you're doing darker skin. The second thing I'm noticing with this is there's a lot of like random skin breaks. I'm assuming that's what these are. These, right here, let me see. Right here, this one and this one, right? I'm assuming those are skin breaks. You got to understand something with tattooing. If you are going to use these skin breaks, they're meant to be for flow. So it's supposed to be kind of like this, right? You want it to flow to the arm, whether it goes like this or like this. You want some kind of directional flow, and that's why you use that. Another reason why you would use those is to break up a design. So if you have a lot of black in an area, if you have a lot of, you know, a mid-tone or something, and you're trying to break up the overall design and keep that flow, that's why you would use those. This, I would just encourage you, bro, just try and be intentional with these. Don't, it looks like you kind of just put these wherever on here, you know? I would be intentional if you are going to use them. If not, then just don't use them, you know? That's the two things I noticed with that. I know you sent me the front arm too, so we're going to check that out right now. So this is the front of the arm. All right, another thing here. I see this all the time with artists is that they will go too small. And everyone knows me by now. If you've been watching me or you know of my work, you know I'm a huge fan of going bigger. Bigger, 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 bigger. So the reason why is for this exact reason. I understand that the person probably wanted all three characters and you're like, well, okay, I'm going to try my best to fit these in. But this is what you run into. Like, you need to make these bigger. So the way you make these bigger but still incorporating all three, even though I always encourage people, like the max amount of faces I try and put in this quarter sleeve type of area right here is 2 faces or 2 main elements. That's like the max I'll usually suggest people do. And this is for that reason. These are just way too cramped in here, fam. Like way, way, way too cramped. I'm not going to comment too much on this like color and stuff just because I don't do color. But as far as the black and gray stuff and the images overall, I would just suggest spreading them out. And the way that you do that is, let's say, like I said before, bro, I would say max 2. And this is kind of the reason why. So you can see now, you layer this first one on top of this second one, or vice versa. And that's how you cram more elements into a smaller space while still making them big. So right here, you'll still have 2 bigger faces, right? This is the other big reason why I'm a fan of like making them as big as possible, is because you're going to get that much more detail by making them bigger. So the images that you picked, especially this one, is a lot of detail, bro. You're going to have to dumb this down a lot, but at least you have a better chance of getting a lot of these more details in it, especially these masks and stuff, by making it bigger, you know? And I know I picked this one. This wasn't in the one that you showed, but I'm just showing you an example of this is how you make them bigger while still in that same space. You know what I mean? You just layer them on top of each other, almost like a collage. And that's what I do every time. I just make them as big as I possibly can, and then I just stack them and then erase where I need to, keep the mouth, all that kind of stuff. But that's just how you roughly make these images bigger while still being in that same like small area. You know what I mean? All right, so next up, we got these 3 images. We got this one, and this one. So these all look really, really good, especially this one. I love the gradients you have on here, all in this area, these areas. You double line these really good, and I'm assuming you just filled them in black. Yeah, it looks really good, man. Technically, you're very, very sound. I would say the only thing about this one would be extending this one out a little bit more as far as like this cheek shading and soften it up a little bit. But like I said, I mean, with these designs, a lot of these look kind of like Pinteresty designs, which I'm assuming that they kind of just brought these to you and they wanted them as they were, as the image shows. You know what I'm saying? So when that happens, you're kind of, handicapped to doing what they want. And I get all that. And that's the part that you have to try and break out of if you want to get to the next level. I assume, because you told me that you want to eventually start doing larger scale stuff in the email. My biggest suggestion with this kind of stuff, bro, is technically you're there. You know what I mean? You can clearly shade, you can clearly pack black, you can clearly pull lines. I mean, that stuff isn't really an issue that it looks like at all. So the next step is trying to convince these people to go bigger and get more creative with their designs, And this is where it's kind of on you, and your success with this is going to be determined off of you, like off of how well you can start incorporating that in when you get these images. When people want just this and you're like, okay, we can take that idea, but we can take it to the next level. And this is how. And you show them examples. And I know most people will be like, well, how do I show them examples if I haven't done it yet? You make them. You make designs. You take a picture of their arm and you come up with different ideas. Maybe you do a bigger butterfly, and then you do a half of a woman's face here, and then you do a big rose here, and then you add flow. Like, there's ways for you to be able to visually show them and convince them, like, no, this idea is good, but let's do this idea because it's going to be better for you. We're going to be able to fill in a bigger space. We're going to be able to, get more of, let's say, like on this one, let me go back to the woman's face, right? Let's say on this one, you're going to be able to say, like, you know what, instead of just like using half this face with this line work and all this stuff, I'm assuming, because I'm pretty sure I've seen this before, like an image like this on Pinterest. And I understand that this is probably what the design showed and that's what you did it as. But you can be like, let's do an actual female face here, and then do broken shards up here, and then maybe a piece of the butterfly here, and then we wrap some of these leaves and we do them more negatively here, and make a full piece out of it. You know what I'm saying, bro? Like, that's the biggest thing with going to the next level with this larger scale work is, yes, I can give you ideas all day long and examples and stuff like that, but that's not the point of this. The point is now it's more about you mentally, like gearing yourself up for when you get these projects in, because people are only going to hit you up for things that you have posted, what is on your page. And if I go to your page, I'm assuming that I'm going to see a lot of this kind of stuff, right? Because you keep getting hit up for the same types of things. If you post small little tattoos and that's all you post, majority of the time you're going to be hit up for small tattoos. Nobody's just randomly going to hit you up and be like, bro, I know you do a bunch of tattoos that are like this big, but I want you to do a full sleeve. Like, they're not going to do that. You know what I mean? So you have to convince people that you know how to do these things. And the way you do that is by designing and by drawing and by doing these images in different art forms. Even if it is just designing them, like if you have a picture of an arm that has no tattoos on it, design a full sleeve to that. Design like 10 of them, post them all over your Instagram and whatever it is, and show it off that like that's the type of work that you want to do and you enjoy doing. Because technically, like line work, shading, gradients and stuff, everything that I'm seeing that you sent me, it's there, bro. So that would be my advice to you. And that's going to be how you're going to be able to transition from doing these types of tattoos to the projects you want to take on. All right, so for this next one, bro, this is fire. Obviously, it's incomplete and you're working on it like on a multiple day project type of thing, but you understand what, gray lining is right here. So it looks like you started doing some of it. The only thing I would kind of caution you with is that I know you probably went darker here because eventually that's going to be all black around it. But when you're doing these multiple day projects and you're not finishing them in one day, you need to be strategic about where you gray line and where you stop. Like, I would rather you finish what is here in one session and be done with it. Then you can more easily put on the stencil and stuff, because when you go to try and put this stencil back on, you're going to have a really hard time trying to map this in and line it up perfectly. Same thing in here. I mean, it's possible, but it just makes your life a little harder. So you want to try and, like you did here, stop in one area so that you can just put this stencil right back on. You know what I mean? You can just match up the black area where you stopped and then just put the stencil back on above it. You know what I mean? When you start getting into like lining half of things and then finishing certain parts, all that kind of stuff, you're just going to make your life like 10 times harder, you know? And you're going to have to wait until, unless you do this like the next day, you're going to have to wait until a lot of this stuff heals. Because if this dude's coming back to you in 3-4 days, like you're not going to be able to touch all this area, you know? So everything else, like from what I can see that you have done, bro, like this stuff, how you can see these little hash mark, like mag marks and stuff. And I can see that you cross hatch, bro, you know how to layer. Like this looks, it's starting to look really good. You know what I'm saying? So you know how to pack black, obviously. You are starting to get kind of like that contrast, where this is like what I'm a big fan of is shading up to here. So you have these like big negative pops. Yeah, I love it, bro. Keep grinding, keep doing your thing. Even the hair and stuff, which is really hard for people to grasp. Like you have that directional flow in here. It looks like hair. It's dark. It's like you were confident by doing this. You know, you went in dark. I love that, bro. It doesn't look like you were hesitant at all. Like I said, the only thing I would caution you on is just being a little bit more strategic, especially with these bigger projects. Like when I do chests and stuff, I like how you did this too. Like you mapped out the chest. That's really good, bro. You want to map this out just like this, like that, and then map out around here, which it looks like you did. So you want to map that out and you want to be strategic about where you place these. I would rather you focus on one panel. I'd rather you focus on one panel at a time. If it helps you to put the whole stencil on, that's cool too. But then have a strategy of where you start and where you stop. You know what I'm saying? Like I would like you to get this done, or whatever it is, get it done. And then you can just move on to putting a full blown stencil on the other side. You know what I mean? That's just my opinion. I think it will help you out a lot, because I used to do this too. I would get lost when I started doing like multiple day projects. I would start certain areas and then I'd have to let them heal. And it's just not a good practice to get into. You know what I mean? Start on an area that you know you can complete in that day and then go to the other side. But everything else looks really good. Your fundamentals look there, bro. You look like you're going to be really good, and that's good, bro. So good shit, dude. All right, so this next one, we have this one, and this one. So start with this one first, just some line work. It looks like you started maybe with like a traditional apprenticeship or learning traditional, which is good fundamentals to have. You know what I mean? Good solid line work. Packing black, packing shading or color or whatever it is. And your lines, from what I can tell, look really good. Your black looks super saturated right here. Like this is really good. This is really good. Especially right in here. This is like super saturated. And that's like perfect, bro. The only thing I would maybe like point out is like the shakiness of the lines there. And here, you kind of like overlap these. The thing with line work tattoos or like 2D type designs like this, where it's just black and lines, is that all this is going to be extremely glaring. So you really need to like focus on your fundamentals, especially when you want to do this type of work. Like all these lines and stuff need to be extremely crisp, because you can see this from here. You know what I'm saying? You can see the wobbles, you can see the shakes, all that. I would focus more on your line work. It looks like your black is pretty good. This looks fresh and not healed. So As long as everything heals smooth, it didn't scar, you didn't do way too many passes of black to be able to make sure it was saturated. You went to the right depths. You didn't have any blowouts. Like, everything else looks pretty good, especially for, if I remember, I think in the email you said 3 months you've been tattooing. So that's really good, bro. For you to have that fundamental of packing black, I would just focus on tightening up your line work, being a little bit more intentional with that. You know what I mean? Let's see. Let's check out some of your other stuff. Lines look pretty good here from what I can see. Let's see. Like I said, I don't see any of these healed, so I can't really tell if there is blowouts or not. But here it looks like you started shading some. With this trad style, like, I'm not really the best person to gauge these things because that's not really my style. But like with this shading right here, I don't know if this is supposed to be a gradient right in here. If it's not, and you just saturated like a mid-tone or something, then it looks pretty good. Like I said, it's kind of hard for me to know without seeing the actual design. But if you do want to get into more realism, you're going to need to work on some of your gradients, bro. Like here, if this was supposed to be a gradient, that needs to be a lot softer going this way. Same thing here. I would say this needs to be more of a gradual thing, where this kind of comes all the way to here, and this is a little bit darker here, and then mid to light. Just kind of balance that gradient out where it's not this super harsh stop. You know what I mean? Again, like I said before, it's probably just the design and everything. You're following the design, but if you want to get it more into realism, then you're going to want to work on that gradient. Like in here, right here, you want it dark to light. Obviously, it depends on the design and light source and all that kind of stuff, but I can see kind of like the shakiness in the hatchiness. I don't know how to say that, but in some of these shading, in some of this shading, you know what I'm saying, bro? Blacks look all right. Like I said, just keep working on tightening up your line work. All in here, fully saturating so you don't get any holidays. That's what those are called. If you want it to be more trad and neo-trad, then you really need to punch those blacks in, punch that line work in, and have it be very, very strong. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, other than that, for 3 months, bro, you're on the right track, dog. Just keep pushing, keep grinding, keep practicing. All right, so this next one, let's see. All right. So I think I read in the email that you sent this to my Discord a while ago, bro. Man, I went back and looked, and your work has definitely improved. So shout out to you, fam. Good shit. You kept grinding this whole past year. Good job, bro. Biggest thing that I'm noticing with this one would be that, obviously, bro, you know what I'm gonna say? Make it bigger. You know, let's just assume that the dude was not letting you go bigger or whatever the case is. What I would say is that at least needs to, if you're doing a quarter sleeve, essentially, this needs to fit up to at least here, bro. This needs to fit. This needs to come this way. This needs to come to there. That needs to come over. I should not see any skin like this when you take that picture from top down. You know what I'm saying? Like, this whole area should look like it's completely done. You know what I mean? That's the biggest thing, and that's why I always say go bigger, bro. But then the other reason is, I'm just going to show you real quick, is let's say you did make this bigger, even though I think that there's other changes that you could do as well. Just like this, bro. Like, just by making it bigger, tell me that doesn't look better, bro. You know what I'm saying? Just by even doing exactly what you did, but just making it bigger, you know? that's the thing. That's why I'm always such a fan of just going bigger, bro. You need to fill up those areas, you know, assuming that this person is probably going to get a full sleeve eventually, at least a half sleeve. Like, you want to push that bigger stuff, bro. You at least need to make it fit this actual quarter sleeve, you know? Other than that, bro, like technically with this is that it looks very washed out. It looks like you're a little hesitant to punch your blacks. I can't tell if you are using full black in these areas or not. It looks like it here and here and maybe here and then here. That's where I see that you looked at least a little more intentional about like going in there with black. I'm not sure what ink you're using or your voltage or the type of machine or anything, but I would say be more confident with your blacks and raise that contrast, bro. Because if I turn this black and white, bro, you see how washed out that is? Like, that is way, 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 way under contrasted. You know what I'm saying? Like, these tones all start looking the same. Like, if this is supposed to be pure black and this is supposed to be like your light tone or your mid tone or something, like, you can't differentiate all these different tones. You know what I'm saying? This is really impressive that you got this to look this way. That's really good, bro. Especially down there in those small little areas. That's good, bro. These little striations that you're working on over here, great. The biggest thing I would say with this is, let me see. I would say understand your light source and simplify a little bit more. So you might want to chill on the striations and stuff all in here, bro, as much, because it can start blending into looking like clothing instead of actual like muscle striations. So drawing anatomy, looking up anatomy references and stuff will really help with that, especially in these like physique type tattoos. Other than that, the other thing, I have a few of my tattoos that I was going to show up against this is my point with this stuff, right? So I'm assuming this dude probably came to you and was like, bro, I want a lion and a Spartan, right? And I want some with clouds and this, but I want him to like see the abs and all this stuff, right? And I want it to fit all in this little area. This is where, just like a couple tattoos ago, I was talking about that dude, where the next part of what he needs to do is start getting people to creatively think outside the box and to make these images bigger, bro. Because it's only going to help you in the long run. It's going to help them have a better tattoo. And I've had multiple people ask me for Spartan, lion, that type of feel, that type of like theme, right? The first thing that I do is I make them bigger. And you can see right here. Like, this was an animal, a wolf, and a Spartan, right? But I made it into an entire outer sleeve. Now, I'm not telling you to rush out and go do this the next time, like, oh, do a full outer sleeve, you know what I mean? But it's just to start getting you to think, like, how can I make these more, like, larger scale and to be able to get more of those details in there? Because do you see the size of this helmet versus this helmet? You're not going to be able to see this from very far. This is very, very tiny. It's even harder to make it look good. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, even if it was just to fill up this whole quadrant and maybe shrink some of more of his body and make it look like, and maybe make him like this big, and then maybe cut his body like right here. That's more what I would want the focal point to be around. You know what I mean? Pick your main elements and pick a good focal point. So I like to pick an image and then zoom into a perspective of it, you know? The other thing I would say is with this mane, bro, you need to have some kind of an ending point, bro. some kind of an ending point with this mane, because otherwise it will just trail off and trail off. Like you can see right here, it looks like you just stopped the mane. Like you kind of faded it out and then you're like, well, I don't know where to end this, so I'm just going to end it right here, you know? And that is the hard part about doing these animals and stuff. But that's why I try and have ending points. Like this one, you can see it's like peeling and stuff, so that's why you see all this. But you can see I have an ending point right here. You can see I have an ending point right here and right here. And then right down here too. You know what I'm saying? And then on this back side, I just created an ending point. You know, eventually you'll start learning that and picking up different tricks with it. But especially with animals and stuff like that, with long flowy hair and manes and women hair and all that kind of stuff that just will trail on and trail on and trail on, you need to create artificial like endpoints. You know what I mean? And then same thing with this Spartan, bro. Like he wanted the same type of thing, same vibe, right? Spartan helmet, Spartan man, you know what I mean? But this was an entire forearm, and now you can see like the fur on top, the pieces of the helmet, like little details, little scratches, little whatever it is, bro. You just get that much more detail by going bigger. You know what I mean? So it doesn't mean that you need to make this whole thing a lion and then all up here a Spartan, but it just means like maybe do a half of a face of a lion and make the lion be more like right in this area, like the whole half of the lion is here, and then the Spartan head is zoomed in and it's more right here. You know what I mean? Just something to make it bigger. It's gonna help you out a lot, bro. But yeah, I would say the main thing is just making it fit that space. And then the second thing I would say is focus on punching in your tones, bro. I can see the same problem up here is like, if you're gonna make this black, bro, make this black. You know what I'm saying? Put it right in. Put your blacks, punch them in. Punch them in so you know it's black. All these clouds and stuff, bro, make this dark around it. Make it dark and then start your gradient way out to here. You know what I mean? Really start darkening it up, this stuff, so that you have this contrast. Same thing down here, bro. Just make these really dark and then fade out of it. And you're going to start to see eventually your image coming more and more to life, because right now it just looks pretty washed out. You know what I mean? But other than that, bro, I'm proud of you, dog. You definitely been making some jumps and improvement, so good shit, dog.